updates, including I just dropped another YouTube short today, which was pretty funny. I gotta admit, or at least a couple hundred of you thought it was funny so far.
You do need to do a different chair dance, Neil. You got to come up with something new.
This is the only Do you remember?
You have your thumbs up, and you're like, hey.
Do you remember Hitch? Remember Hitch with Denzel?
Don't do that. Don't ever do that again.
Don't ever do that again. Like, this is where we live. This is where we don't need no pizza. They got food there. So, tonight we are doing, Jeff, we are doing a purple teaming crash course.
I should have worn my purple shirt.
You should have worn your purple shirt. Should have worn your purple shirt, right? It's okay. It's all right. Now this is gonna be interesting because Jeff is a sales guy. Jeff's a sales guy.
That's nice. You usually call me a dumb sales guy. Cool. Hey, I've improved.
You've improved. You've moved up the world. Cheers. Jeff is a sales guy, and so we are going to try to do a crash course on purple teaming, and Jeff is our litmus test to see if we are successful in explaining purple teaming concepts to at least the minimum viable product that we have in this chat.
Yeah, so the bottom line is if I come out of this session having any semblance of any degree of confidence that I know what a purple teamer does and I'm okay, then everyone on this stream should feel very comfortable that they could just jump right in.
That's right. But first, I do want to talk about our newest sponsor, At Root. Okay. And Jeff, you know this because you've known Carmen for a while. We've been out to dinner together. We've been over to your house. Like, you've had the privilege or the disaster, however you want to refer to it, of putting up with Carmen and I for a while.
We even hung out during COVID on our back porch when it was 20 degrees outside.
Yeah, 100%.
It might not have even been that warm.
100%.
That's how committed we are.
That's how committed we are to this friendship. How committed. How much of a health nut is Carmen?
Oh, way more than you and me.
And that's like putting it mildly.
I pretty much held my straight face as long as I could, which is about 13 milliseconds.
Yeah. She is insane when it comes to healthy stuff. You can tell by my 0% body fat that I'm the same way.
I know.
Obviously,
you're a tough competition.
I'm a tough competition.
But she blows you away.
She blows me away.
0%.
When I first met her, you know those white Monster drinks Jeff remembers going by my desk, and I'd have like a stack of white Monster drinks sitting on my desk. And she was like, "You can't be drinking those." And I was like, "Why not? They're good." And she's like, "Do you know how many chemicals are in those things?" And I was like, chemicals? I was in the military. I sucked dirt for 10 years. I mean, is it any worse than that?
How's that going to be?
And then I actually started to read the ingredients, and she was right. They were bad. Like, they were names
you could actually read those things?
I mean, I could read the words. I had no idea like what it was. So we struggled for a long time because like water's hard to do anyway. So I'm a huge tea fan. So we found, Jeff, randomly this At Root drink company. And she actually read the ingredients because that's what she does. She's crazy about reading the ingredients. And she read the ingredients, and it's like 100% like natural ingredients. Like, you can go find the plant that ingredient came from in the store. Like, she looked at that and she was like, I actually know what every single one of those plants are. Like, she's like, this is actually probably the healthiest energy drink I've ever seen in my entire life. And so we looked at, so hey, it passed Carmen's muster.
and none of those ingredients are actually derivatives of oil?
And none of those derivatives, oil, poisons, you know, things that are otherwise going to give you cancer and kill you. Who knows? I mean, who knows what it's going to be like, right? But I mean, she looked at it, she was like, okay, I like this. So I was like, well, let me pick it up and take a look at it, because I'm not going to pass up this opportunity to have an energy drink that I can actually drink that my wife actually approves of. And first thing I noticed was, look, it's root. It's root. It's program. It's actually got, like, you know, gaming stuff some nerd
total
stuff.
Nerd came up with that.
Look at this can design.
You know that?
And you can't see it in the camera, but down here at the bottom, it says 64-bit. And I noticed this the other day. The calories are 64 calories. It's a 64-bit drink. It's at least protected with ASLR. But-unch. That's a nerd joke right there. But-unch. So anyway, super cool can design. I was like, okay.
Diffie Hellman would be really proud.
Diffie Hellman would be really, really proud. So I was like, all right, let's grab a case of these. Let's see if they're any good. I have not been able to put these down. These things are freaking amazing. Like,
all right, I will. The second thing that you have changed my mind on.
I have two of them here. Like, that's how awesome
they are. Drinker. Nice.
They're freaking awesome. So you know, we did reach out to them. We did grab them. You can hit !root. There is a 20% discount code. There is a 20% discount code in chat that you can go and get a case of these for 20% off. That's just for you. That's just for you listening to the cyber and security community to go get 20% off. There's actually also a game. I have to show this game. Jeff. So there's a link. If you hit !root, you'll see the link in there as well. But in addition, Jeff, so sure. Okay, good. Yeah, there it is. All right, awesome. So in addition to that, there's a game. And
if you win, does it show a picture of you chair dancing?
No. But look, you can look like it's like a Donkey Kong. Get the drink. Look at this. It's awesome. You're stopping spammers. Look, you see the little envelopes? I'm stopping spammers. Look, this is easier than when I was at Abbott trying to build a SOC.
I was going to say, this is like, you're way better at this, by the way. Than
See, look at that. Spammers got the computer. I'm done. Oh my God. The computer's dead. Anyway.
Oh my gosh, this is hilarious.
Right? Isn't it? SpammerBach. It's great. I love it. So the links, hold on, let me get that to stop. Stop playing the game. There we go. The links for both the 20% off code as well as the SpammerBach Game are in chat by hitting !root. Head on over there, go play a fun little game, get your 20% discount. Let me know how it goes.
It's not like embedded with malware or anything. You just like infested your machine or anything stupid like that, huh?
Dear God, I hope not. It should be. Everything should be good. Yeah. I hope so. Anyway, all right, awesome. So I'm super excited to welcome !root to the cyber insecurity family. I'm obviously a fan. My philosophy is I wouldn't put anything in front of you that I wouldn't drink myself.
Clearly, that I wouldn't drink a half a case a day of myself.
Yeah. So speaking of which, we're doing a giveaway tonight because in celebration of scoring !root. Of getting root, like that. In celebration of getting root, we're giving away a case of root tonight, a little bit later on. So do stick around. We are definitely going to give away a case of that stuff a little bit later tonight.
We are not tying that to the success rate of me becoming a true purple teamer.
No, but we may tie it to how enthusiastic I teach tonight. I just saw somebody in chat say, "How does it taste?" Fantastic question. So it tastes a little bit like I think, what did I say the other day? I was talking to somebody the other day. It tastes like a ginger orange juice, right? So it's kind of like a ginger orange juice. And actually, I don't have a glass here. I'd pour it. It's actually a little bit of an orangish type flavor, so it's kind of like I think ginger orange juice is pretty good. You don't get that like pucker factor when you usually taste ginger, so that's why I like it. All right, Purple teaming, Jeff.
Here, here.
Here, here. What do you know about purple teaming right now, Jeff?
Kind of a combination of, and I think I've said this before on the stream. My understanding is it's kind of a combination of red team and blue team, but I think people miss the purpose of it, because a true purple team is not there to show that the blue team or the red team really has their act together or is in a world of hurt. It's there to make sure that people learn, and they're there to make sure that they learn more effectively. At least that's my understanding of it, right? I think people have this incorrect perception that you've got a red team exercise coming in to say, oh my gosh, your company is totally screwed. I could get in 700 different ways and own your environment, within 13 minutes, right? And everyone has this perception that that's the purpose of the red team. And I think a true red team exercise isn't there to do that. It's there to be successful getting into understand the vulnerabilities in order that the blue team, who's there every day, 9 to 5, and then 24/7 in global organizations to protect that organization, that they're there to make sure that that team has every tool and every prioritized vulnerability in their environment articulated so that they can know how to solve it.
Okay.
Right? And they can prioritize it effectively.
Okay.
I think that's the real purpose of the purple team.
Okay. I like where your head's at. If
I know I just gave a purple team 101 description.
That is okay. That is okay. When we were first starting to do penetration testing for some of the organizations that I've done penetration testing for, when I came out of the military, one of the big things that I noticed pretty quickly was there was a disconnect, right, between us coming in to do a penetration test and presenting findings, and then not just what the organization as a whole did with those findings, but essentially what the incident response team specifically got out of those findings. Because here's reality for a lot of pen test. And I'm speaking to you, Jeff, but I'm speaking to everybody here who may not necessarily be aware of this from a pen testing perspective. Your perception of a pen test is you get assigned a scope of work, 10, 15, 20, 100 IP addresses. You attempt to exploit those IP addresses. You rush to do whatever it is that you want to do, and you go back to your office or your home, and you write a report, and then you give it over to the client. When you actually sit down and think about that in a normal organization, what happens is if I'm sitting at CISO at Abbott or any other Fortune 100 company, I get a pen test report, I'm looking at it, I'm getting read out by the vendor or whatever the case is. I get hit with all these findings, and then I turn it over to my SOC director, I turn it over to my director of architecture, I turn it over to my risk and governance guy or girl, and I say, go fix all these problems. They ultimately cascade that down.
So stupid question. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
In that conversation right there, is that usually a tenuous conversation? Is it filled with, what were you guys doing? These are major issues? Or is it hey, they found these things, let's try to get ahead of these, circle back, end of week, let me know kind of progress on what it's going to take?
It varies. It varies really. Like at the executive level, there's this mentality, right? Because depending on how the pen test is couched, there could be this conversation that says, well, the board has to review the results of the pen test. And the board doesn't know the results of or doesn't know the impact, the business impact of the results of the pen test. All they see is that big red critical because it's a CVSS 10 and says, oh my God, this is bad. We have to fix it. It doesn't get much better from the board down to the CISO level. That really only starts to change once you get to the director level. So
the obvious question there is, you get a board delivered document that says, hey, we've got 3 critical issues. Is that actually doing harm because you're then having to switch gears as a security organization and focus on those 3 things that the red team just found, as opposed to doing more valuable projects?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
There is a lot of we kind of overuse firefighting in security a lot of times, but red teams, pen test in general, in large organizations have a tendency to cause a lot of fire drills for that very reason. Right? Because
so how do you mitigate that though? Like, because I hear that and I was like, that's obvious. That's right where my head went. As soon as you said a board hears the red team exercise resulted in 3 critical, vulnerabilities. It's like, yeah, but those probably weren't necessarily critical vulnerabilities for this organization, and the security team understood the technical reasons why.
Exactly.
The board didn't, right?
Yeah. The board.
So how do you mitigate that?
Let me hold that question until we get through some of the purple teaming stuff, and let me see if I can answer that through some explanation of purple teaming. Okay. Because I think my short answer to that is this is why I'm a fan of purple teaming, because I think
they're supposed to fill that gap, right?
Exactly.
And say, okay, well, this is the result of it, but let's take a look at the business impact.
Absolutely. So so there wasn't that interaction, right? So that's what it looks like on kind of the client end, on the CISO end, whatever the case is. When I saw this, so I primarily saw this when I was at PwC and was doing a lot of pen tests for a lot of big organizations at PwC. This was the biggest place that I saw this at, but I've seen it throughout my pen testing career. I made a decision to change how I framed pen test. And I started to couch the conversation. This was long before there were colors. And I started to couch the conversation that says, when we do a pen test, we should sit with the incident response team and do our pen test with the incident response team.
Mm-hmm.
If I say that to you,
like that totally makes sense to me, because if the objective is to help the organization get better and understand how an attacker thinks, that's the only way to do it. Like, so much of security is show me and I'll figure it out how to use what you just showed me and make it my own. But like, that's what I love about security, right? Like, people say, hey, do you like your job? It's like, I love my job because no, I'm serious, because security people really understand that this whole thing is collaborative, right? It's us literally against the world of bad guys. Yeah. And us is vendors, partners, customers, think tank people. Like, it's the whole gamut. And that's one of the reasons, like, I can't sell anything to you right now if I tried, right? You're not on my account list. I couldn't sell to you. But it's one of the things I love about this is, beyond our friendship, we've got this desire to just work together. Yeah. And that's, I think, paramount to a lot of the people in security right now.
Agreed.
Which is super cool.
Yeah. And when you think about that, like when you think about, like, we shouldn't have this split between red teaming, pen testing, and blue teaming, incident response teams, things like that. When you realize that there needs to be that breakdown between those two, that, in a nutshell, is purple teaming. Like we could end the stream right there. Let's push outro. Let's go raid somebody. Like, we could end the stream right there. That's purple teaming at its core.
So I've taken 101 and now I'm in class 202, and it is to ensure that everyone learns and collaborates.
Exactly. One of the biggest takeaways, right, when it comes to thinking about purple teaming and what we want to do with purple teaming, really has to do with, in today's SOC, in the modern security operations center right now, there should not be this concept of red team and blue team working separately anymore at all, right? It started out that way long time ago, and people were like, well, no, I don't think the blue team should know that I'm coming at them. And everybody wanted to be all sneaky about it. But nobody benefited from that. Nobody benefited from that. And so
all that does is foster this feeling with the blue team, the SOC, that I feel like I'm about to get screwed and I can't stop it because I don't know anything about when, how, if, but I feel it. Right.
That's right. That's right.
Doesn't seem like a great work environment.
And here's my biggest reason that I harp on this, right? Is because the blue team only sees the alert. Right? The blue team, if let's make a caveat here that if they see alert, that's all they see is the alert. Right? If they don't see the alert, that's a different conversation. But once they see the alert, then their process starts to do an incident response. But they've missed this entire prevention, this entire defensive side of their primary job. The red team gets the benefit of the full picture. They get the benefit of looking at the organization, doing OSINT, doing their tool development, attacking the organization, watching the incident response team respond, and then adjusting their tactics and moving on to something else. And so with that view in mind, the blue team is literally getting nothing out of a red team engagement. And so first and foremost...
So I have to ask you, do you believe that most SOCs are reactionary only and have no tie-in to the prevention side?
I think that most SOCs have been forced to be reactionary and don't have the bandwidth to focus on the prevention.
Interesting. See, I thought you were going to say authority.
No,
they don't have the authority to do it.
I think if you work with most IT teams, I think authority is a cultural issue that can be overcome if you figure out how to work the layer 8 problems, the political problems in an organization. But I would argue that bandwidth is a harder problem to contend with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're in the trees. They can't see the forest.
That's right. That's right. So first key concept of purple teaming, right? When red teams and blue teams work separately, they and the organizations that they represent are not moving at the same pace as the adversary. So we have to...
Yeah, and if they're working on different paths and not collaboratively, they're not learning from each other either.
Exactly. So the threat will always outpace them 100% of the time. Absolutely. The second thing, and again, to your point, kind of more on the lines on the collaboration, right, is when red and blue operate separate, they have their own objectives, right?
Okay.
Red team is only focused on hacking into a system, and blue team is only focused on responding to an incident.
Yeah, and the red team's only focused on hacking into the system in order to show that they were able to be successful.
Exactly.
That's it.
I'm hoping that this works. This is a new. I'm going to try a new technology here. We're going to see if this works. So I have my iPad here, right? I got the NDI to work. This should. Boom! Check that out. We are So now I have a whiteboard, Jeff. Check this out. Look.
See, this is scary.
Look. I got a little whiteboard just for you.
Aw.
Oh, now what the heck?
What'd you do with the money?
I just crashed it. I just crashed my iPad app. Look, I crashed my whiteboard app.
What'd you do with the money?
What the hell?
What'd you do with the money your mom gave you for art lessons?
Oh my god. Don't you make fun of my art, okay? Like, it's bad enough you make fun of my chair dance. You're not allowed to make fun of my art too, okay? Let's try this again. Boom. All right, here we go. Cool. We good? You good? Oh yeah. See, now you want to do it. Yeah, that's right. Erase now. Okay, cool. There we go. Right. So where was that? Right. So let's talk about a SOC for a second. Right. So in a SOC, right, you've got, if we talk about preparation, right, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, lessons learned, right? The 6 default steps in most incident response processes, right? So you're in
but
this.
Shouldn't the L lead directly back to the P?
It should.
Shouldn't that be in a circle?
It should. So what ends up happening, right, is you live, actually I'm going to do this in a different color, right? Typically what happens in a SOC is you live here in this circular realm. You're preparing for an incident or you're identifying an incident, right? Boom. An alert happens somewhere in here, and you immediately go to contain, eradication, recovery, right? These can be circular if the incident continues to go on. And then, yes, you hope at some point in time you move into lessons learned. Now, most modern SOCs don't go into lessons learned because they run out of time, because they end up, to your point, getting stuck right back on either preparing for an incident or identifying an incident, right?
Yeah, well, so, they already had 3 incidents that popped up while they were doing CE&R. And so they're like, it would be great to think about what we just learned, but I don't have time. I got to go
Exactly. Mm-hmm. When you transpose this, right, and this is this is what I think is the modern day principle behind a pen test or a red team engagement, right? You have you've got some level of OSINT, some level of intelligence gathering that happens at the beginning of the engagement. You typically go to some type of tool development here. You obviously do testing tools because that's what we always do. We definitely test our tools, right? You exploit. You pillage. And then you find your next target, right? It's very circular in that regard. That is a typical pen testing red team process in there. So just looking at those 2 processes, you can see that their objectives are completely different, right?
Yeah.
The red team has more of an opportunity to kind of go at their own pace, right? They can get here.
Yeah, they can fast roll or slow roll, and some of those can get around tools that are designed to observe and identify.
Exactly. And so when you look at it in this cycle, so let's do this. Let's call it, right, this is a typical IR process, right? This is typical. Yeah. We'll do this one in red, right?
Are you calling R is remediate or respond or
recovery?
What do you call it? Recovery.
Okay. Yeah. So it's prepare, identify, contain, eradicate, recover,
lessons learned.
Lessons learned. Exactly. So looking at those, you can kind of see just how the objectives are vastly different in those regards. Yeah. In most cases as well, when you look at what the red team does, that can exist in every single one of these phases right here. Right? It's not independent of a phase. It's not independent of anything else. And so they can continue to run their operations through each of the different incident response phases as well. Where this becomes important is because typically when you're in this phase of an incident, this phase, if the incident is really bad, Jeff, from all the incidents you've seen me work over the years, from all the incidents that you've seen across your time at Carbon Black, what is life like for an analyst, for a SOC manager, for a SOC director, for a CISO, when you're in that identification containment phase of an incident?
Neil had hair. That's what No, it is like you are on fire. And it is not just you, literally everyone around you. And you are bringing in everyone that you can grab to help, even if the facet of their ability to help is so tiny, it doesn't matter. They are on deck too.
That's right.
Because when you need them instantly.
That's right.
And so you've got the network team, you had your AV vendors on call, you had me on call.
I did. I legitimately had you on call.
You literally were around the clock, and your teams were around the clock.
100%. So,
and then in a week's time, they got sleep.
Right. So fire. Right. That's my drawing for fire right there. Like, it's fire right there. So the reason I bring that up is because most IR teams who are in that cycle of identifying threats and containing threats, they have zero ability to evaluate what's actually happening in their environment.
Yeah, there's no lessons learning right there.
You're not lessons learning right there.
No, you are like, well, in a lot of organizations, it is trying to manually go through log files and correlate them to each other.
That's right. When lessons learned happens, if it happens, and again, I say this realistically, I'm gonna ask you, how often do you think that happens? In today's environment, only on significant incidents.
Okay.
If an incident required forensics, legal, privacy, that's when lessons learned happens.
Yeah. And I would argue the closer it gets to be a disclosed incident, the more time is spent on the forensics, lessons learned, and the post-incident documentation.
100%. Absolutely. So I think we've articulated now kind of the two different operating models, how a red team operates, how a blue team operates. We've identified that there is no time to do any level of understanding with what's happening in an incident while you're in the key phases of an incident response process. Now you can kind of start to see why the two teams operating independently is just generally bad for an organization. You don't
have a purple pen, do you?
I'm pretty sure I could. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can do some color matching. Look, see, I can do some colors here. Let's go. Look, there's a purple.
You got a purple.
I got a purple
there.
You
go.
I gotta make it a little bit. There we go. Do. Look at there. See, I got a purple right there. Boom, purple.
Excellent.
You didn't notice. I do have purple lights in. I did change my nano leaves to be purple in light of today's show. Just saying.
That makes me feel like a purple teamer more.
See, boom. Look at there. Prediction done. I'm calling that one.
Oh, no. I said it makes me feel like a purple team. No, I would say, to absolutely ruin the analogy here, that a lot of people would put the purple team as like an eye looking at the pickerel and OSINT processes, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
And I think instead, the purple team needs to be more like a cloud enveloping both of them, because it has to go around both and have a tie-in to the executive team. It needs to have a tie-in to IT ops, security ops in the business.
I'm going to say it differently because I think this is a better way to say it. When you look at purple teaming and you look at it in this picture, testing, the pen testing process over here is no longer a project. It is a program.
Say that again.
Red teaming, penetration testing, conducting a penetration test is no longer a project. And let's go back to when we talked about how penetration testing happens in an organization, right? I'm a CISO. I go out and I source 3 vendors. I say, give me a statement of work for a penetration test. We do a scoping exercise. You come in, you do a penetration test. I get a report. It's transactional, right? It goes away. It's a project.
Yep.
Testing is no longer a project. It is a program. It has legs. It has a charter. It has a mission. It has a process. It lives and breathes and does something on a day-to-day basis, making it not a transactional endeavor.
Yeah, it's a living, breathing process that can be modified and grow over time, as opposed to I'm done. Thank you.
Exactly. So when we look at it in that construct, when we look at kind of our new design, when we think about purple teaming, your purple teaming, let's talk about first what the members of your purple team look like. You definitely are going to want somebody who has incident response experience. You're also going to want somebody
that has pen testing experience.
Who has pen testing experience, right? I think it goes without saying. You want both of those. The reason being is because they're familiar with the process, right? They're familiar with the tools, right? They're familiar with the business. They have a lot of business context on the IR side. You want to talk about the pen testing side. Your pen tester knows TTPs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knows the tools, the tactics, and the procedures of the adversary, is up to date on the threat. And I'm not talking threat intelligence, right? We're talking threat modeling. We're talking how do, we could probably couch this one and say MITRE, right? They're up to date on, how to interpret MITRE and how to actually use MITRE on a day-to-day basis. They're familiar with,
wouldn't you call that more like framework for understanding tactics for attacking?
Yeah, I'd get on board with that. Yeah, I'd get on board using it as a framework. 100%.
Okay.
Look at you being innovative.
There you go. See?
Look at you being innovative. I'm going to be up all night. Right?
I do not want to get a text from you at 2 a.m, by the way.
Well, now that you said that, you're definitely going to text from at 2 a.m. When it comes to purple teaming, what companies are using purple team in the most effective way, and which ones are doing it the best in the cloud as well? Fantastic question, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
If when you say companies, I'm going to assume maybe you're talking about like Target, Home Depot, Microsoft, things like that. And I would actually say that it's still pretty new, that I wouldn't say that a lot of companies are doing it effective. I can remember going to Target post breach. I think this was like 2 years after their breach, and looking at this was obviously before purple teaming as a concept really kind of blew up. Watching their pen testing team and watching their IR team, and they legitimately and I'll totally draw it for you because it was amazing, right? It was in a conference room. They legitimately had a conference room. They had the red team guys on this side of the conference room. They had the blue team guys on this side of the conference room. They had a big giant TV there at the front, and in the TV on this side of the TV, they had the attack that was going on by the red team. And on this side of the this side of the TV, they had their tools on this side of the TV for the blue team, and they were literally attacking and defending right there in front of each other on the screen. And that was probably the best implementation of purple teaming exercises that I had seen, and that was at Target. And so that's
how much of that experience were I guess how much of that was dominated by the blue team saying, why are we not seeing that? Why are we not seeing that? What are we looking at here?
And
like,
that's,
I know they're attacking. What can we look at better or differently in order to gain visibility? How much of that was happening?
Pre purple teaming as a concept blowing up? Not at all.
Yeah.
Right. And here's why. It gets back to ego. Like I'm not going to get on a soapbox, right? You can ask me about this Friday morning during Tea with a Hacker. But most of this was because you had egos on the red side who said, I'm not going to tell you how I'm hacking your systems because it's black magic. You don't get to know how I'm hacking your systems.
And I'm just better than you.
Ha 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 ha. If you want to figure out how to catch me, get good, son. Right? And so that mentality.
Do you think that's changing? Do you think that mentality is changing in red team operations right now?
Not as fast as I would like to see it happening. Right? Okay. I think that there's. I think that.
So this goes out to all the listeners who want to become red teamers. When you get to that role, don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. Right?
No, it is like try to help the organization. It is not about your success and how like awesome you are as a red teamer attacker. It is all about how you can help the blue teamer understand, see, and stop what you are doing. Because if they can do that with you, they're going to be better at stopping the real thing.
So let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about that because most people are like, well, that sounds great, Jeff, but I don't inherently know what that looks like in my red team process, right? Most red teamers, they see this, right? And that's how they think, right? I'm just going to go research my target. I'm going to prep some tools. I'm going to attack my target. I'm going to exploit the stuff. I'm going to dump LSAS. I'm going to drop responder LLMNR. I'm going to get some hashes. I'm going to crack them, and I'm going to move around the network, and I'm just going to continue this cycle until I get to my crown jewels, right? Whatever it happens to be for the engagement. They don't even think like that. So let's talk about what a purple team engagement should look like. And I say that, if you'd asked me 5 or 6 years ago, I'd have told you a red team engagement should have looked like, but now we're going to call it a purple team engagement.
Because the red teamers just were unwilling to do it, or because it's actually two different kind of ways of thinking? Like, can the same person do an effective job as a red teamer and a purple teamer, or does it take a different kind of personality?
That's a good question. I think it's about, I think once you get out of your own head as a red teamer and you realize that your goal as a red teamer is to help the organization, right? Exploiting the organization doesn't help the organization, right?
Right. It just makes them feel less in control and more vulnerable, and my life is going to suck for the next 30 days as we're fixing all these things.
Look, this part right here, this exploit part that we have right here, this is what most red teamers think that their life lives for.
Yep.
Most red teamers think that when they get to exploit a box, when they pop a shell in that box, that's what they've trained their entire life for.
Yeah, and you would argue that it's not that. That is the step one of a two-step process of exploit and show,
right.
Teach.
Right.
Right.
Right. What comes out of this pillage that actually goes into a report with business value, this is actually what pen testers should be striving for. But everybody is so focused down here because we've glamorized it that they lose sight of this right here.
So I'm gonna ask you the obvious question, because like I'm a huge one for, if it doesn't make sense for the business, why are we doing it, right? Like, what is the business value for a red team exercise if I just get a report that says, hey, you suck here, 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 and here, right? I've exploited you here, here, and here. And by the way, the security team, like, I think we need to delve into this a smidge more, because I'd love your opinion on this and maybe some details for the listeners. A security organization has, at any given time, 5 very active projects with maybe 20 on the docket for the year, right? And some of them are longer lasting. It depends on the size of the organization. If you get a red team exercise report and it says this is critical, this is critical, this is critical, what does that do to the security team's progress on those other things? And I know we touched on this before, right? It's they're going to derail those things, and I get that. But from a prioritization perspective, are the vulnerabilities that have not gone attacked before, like, are those truly critical vulnerabilities in that organization, or are they just generally critical vulnerabilities that may or may not be critical for that organization?
Let me couch that one with the other piece to that, because there is a whole trail on that one that, yes, I want to get to later.
So you still want to table that one?
I still want to table that one.
Okay.
I still want to table that one. You're
because
still
I got a follow-up question that I think is, like,
what's the follow-up?
The real purpose of, the real purpose of the purple team.
What's that?
Because the real purpose of the purple team, that's harder to say than it should be, is to ensure that the executive leadership has all of these findings in the right frame of mind.
Yes, with business context.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's all the executive leaders care about. They do not care one bit about the super cool things that these red teamers did.
100%.
Nor do they understand it, right?
And
they only care about
let's put a really fine point on it, Jeff. They'll never care. I'm talking to you. You will never ever in your pen testing career get an executive to care about your exploit. They'll never care.
What do they care about, Neil?
They care about the business impact.
They care about risk. They care about business impact. They care about money.
They do.
Correct?
They do. 100%.
Anything else? Is there anything else that they care about that the red teamer could or might potentially dovetail with?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Nothing.
So how many of these red team reports actually show the business value? Or or are they focused on, we did this exploit, this exploit, this exploit. You've got these 3 critical vulnerabilities, go solve them.
It's hard to define a quantity other than to say too many.
It happens too often. That would be my guess.
It happens way too often. I think if you were to put 10 pen test reports in front of me, if you were to find 10 random companies out there, put 10 random pen test reports in front of me, I'd say at least 9 of them fail the business value test.
Yeah. Right.
I'd put that one on the line.
To be a better red teamer, think like a purple teamer.
Exactly.
It's kind of okay.
So let's real quick. I do want to hit a little bit of what I mean by testing isn't a project, it's a program, right?
Yeah, I made you repeat that because it didn't make sense to me. It does now a little bit.
It does now? Okay, I was going to say, right? This is a project, right? It has a beginning. We define scope. We execute. We report. And then we close.
We bill.
That's a much better way to put it. That's a much better way to put it, right? This is a project, right? It has a definitive start and it has a definitive end. Right here. This is what we mean when we say testing shouldn't be a project, right? Let's talk about what it means to be a program. So, in a good purple teaming program, you have a team. Let's for the sake of keeping the conversation simple, it's a mixed team. You got folks who are IR analysts. You got folks who are pen testers. You've got that mixed team already established there, right? You're going to wake up one day, right? And at the beginning of your engagement, you're going to say, we have a problem, right? Maybe it's tool specific. Maybe you want to test Splunk. Maybe you want to test, Carbon Black. Maybe you want to test something else, right? Maybe it's threat specific, right? Colonial Pipeline just got hit with DarkSide. Maybe we want to test DarkSide ransomware and see how it goes, right? Maybe there's a new technique that hit the market, right? Or new vulnerability that hit the market, like the Microsoft vulnerability, that came out not too long ago, right? Something happened in the world and you all sit down and you say, we have a problem that we need to look at, okay? From that problem's perspective, I had to realize that my dot was a little too close to problem. From that problem's perspective, you almost have...
Is that a dot or a fine point, Neil?
Is that a dot or a fine point? You've got a track that goes... You got a couple different tracks that goes off, right? Right? Obviously, the red and the blue track goes off. The blue teamer sits down and starts to look at their tools that they use on the blue team side. Their SIM, their EDR, all their log sources. They start to look at all their data points. The red teamer starts to look at all the tools that they have for that problem as well. Okay? So everybody's like, this is like that beginning part of Magic or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever it is that us nerds used to play, where we're like, okay, what pieces of the puzzle do I have around this problem that I'm trying to solve? Right? Then they come together. I'm glad you made me do the purple thing, right? Then they come back together.
I'm here to help.
Right?
Ooh.
And this is what's missing, right? They talk. They talk.
Yeah. Q&A.
Right? Like, hold on. We haven't even started the engagement yet. And we're having a conversation, right? Okay, what tools do you have that mirror this functionality? What tools do you have to look for this threat, right? How do we simulate this technology? Okay, cool. We talk, right? Okay, now the red team goes and they develop some type of battle plan.
So what goes into that battle plan?
What systems are we going to attack? What systems do we think would be most
vulnerable? So they're coming
up
with a prioritized list of things that they're going to try based on the tools that they know the organization has. And I would venture to say that this is exactly what happens in the reconnaissance phase of an attack. Right?
Exactly. This is basically replacing.
So real attackers are using a reconnaissance phase to take the place of this conversation.
Absolutely, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How are we going to do this? How are we going to attack? Which tools, techniques, procedures? How are we going to come at the assets that are in scope?
Yep.
The blue team is trying to identify what, if any, tools they have, right? Let's say that as a group during this talk, they decide to go after some particular servers, right? Everybody knows this, right? It's got to be in scope for the red team. The red team has to know what targets they're going after. The blue team has to then look at it and say, well, we're getting event logs. We've got EDR on it. Maybe we've got file integrity monitoring on it. Who knows, right? We've got some tools on it. I can query Splunk or Elastic, and I can see some data on it. The blue team's looking around like, I think we're good. We can see a lot of stuff on this box. So I think we should be ready to go.
A 30-day-old vulnerability scan run on it. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's normal, right? 30 days old for a vulnerability scan, right?
You and I have seen organizations that are a lot worse than that.
I know, but like I'm just saying middle of the road. I think some organizations are doing it way more often than that and actively scanning.
100%.
And some are way worse than that. Some don't have any.
Absolutely.
They have a service that comes in and does it once a year.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
100%. So we've got our little join in here again where they come back together and they talk again. And really this talk is like, all right, I'm ready to do the job. Are you ready to do the job? Yeah, I'm ready to do the job. Let's get this job run. Now they both together come back out and execute their attack.
But the blue team knows when they're doing it and on the server.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which I don't think has been the case with a lot of red team exercises.
It is not.
Correct?
That's the problem. This part right here, this particular part, let's do this one in yellow, right? This is the part that is screwing most organizations over. Is when
it's the part that's not getting them the value out of their red team exercise that they just paid for.
Exactly. Because now that they execute, now the blue team can look and say, am I seeing this attack?
Yeah.
Right? That's the goal that you're looking for. This right here, if we stopped right here, this is the goal of purple teaming, is for this conversation to be had right here. I'm firing my missiles. Do you see my missiles?
I don't see nothing. Shoot. Yeah. Right?
Right? right? This is what's supposed to happen in a purple team exercise. Do you see the attack? Now, listen, when we talk about seeing the attack, right, there's probably 15 tools that the blue team has to check to see that attack.
They've got a sim that brings it all together.
Or they got a sim that brings it all together, or something. Who knows, right? Something, right? But they've got to check all that stuff to look to see if they even see the attack, right? Now we get to the end of this. Wow, my lines are starting to get a little blurry here.
I'm actually a little surprised your iPad hasn't crashed again.
Right? And so now they come back together again and they talk, right? Where did you see? What did you see? How did you do it? Right? What's going on? What do we do from here? Right? Having this conversation again.
Well, I love the idea of during the execute and look phase, if they're actually sitting on opposite sides of the table, because then they actually know, hey, the tool that I have got delayed it 30 minutes. And oh, by the way, I was owned within 10.
Now,
that's a big problem, right?
That's a big problem. That's exactly it. That's exactly what we're talking about. When we look at these tools, right? Did it detect?
Right.
How
Did
long?
Did it see it? Is it designed to see it? Do I need manual intervention in order to make sure I see it?
Is it configured?
Yep.
Is it configured so that I can see it?
Yep.
Right? So
yeah, that's a great point, because a lot of these tools can do a lot of these things.
That's right.
But unless you turn that on,
that's right.
Some people say that, if I turn that on, it costs me another percentage of CPU utilization.
Right.
Yeah. And your point?
And your point?
You got to have it.
Yep.
And this is where I think the battle between IT operations and security operations and finance, because there's a financial impact of it, really need to come together and start assessing, okay, what are we going to pay for from a risk perspective?
100%.
Like, how much is acceptable risk?
100%.
And I think if IT operations and security operations got together and talked financial and business impact better, that the CFO would totally buy off on, I'm going to spend a little bit more money on more infrastructure and more network, because that information is going to save our butts when we're attacked.
100%. 100% agree. Hold that thought, because I think I've got a good way to summarize that together, because your head's in the right place, right? So,
did I just graduate? Did I just graduate from Purple Team 101 to Purple Team 102?
You're in Purple Team 102 now. We're trying to get you to Purple Team 103. I'm going to try to push this. I think we're going to get you. There. Right. I'm ready to call this prediction. But to your point, when you're here in this phase, what types of things do you think are better for both the blue team and the red team to be having right now from a meaningful conversation perspective?
This is what I just did. You should be seeing X, Y, and Z happening. Do you?
And if the answer from the blue team is no, what can most blue teams do right there to remediate that?
I don't know. Like, I would guess that I've got to turn on more of my configs.
That's right.
There you go. Hey,
that's right. You can change configure. Now, in all fairness, to your point earlier, if it's owned by IT, maybe you can't change a firewall configuration. Right. But if you didn't even see it, if in this phase you didn't even see it, that's a SIM control that you can fix right there on the spot. Right? If it's an EDO,
and actually, I think this is where I think executive leadership needs to empower the security organization. That, hey, if you see something that is a critical failure in our operations, you need to let us know so that we can figure that out and stop that from happening.
Absolutely.
Because you should be empowered to solve that, right?
Absolutely.
The remediation side.
Absolutely. So the remediate part, you get to remediate right there on the spot. So let's go all the way back, Jeff, to what we talked about before, where we talked about getting that pen test report at the board level, down to the CISO, down to the SOC director, all the way down to, you know, the analyst or the SOC director or whoever's going to make the change. How long does that process take to get to something that actually can be remediated to be meaningful to the enterprise versus doing a purple team exercise like this?
I'd say in some organizations, that's a 30-day cycle.
That's a 30-day, yeah, at least. So we have just
not even taken into account where you are in the change management cycle.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you just missed it, then you're like, it's more than that.
100%. So in this model, it's easy to see why purple teaming directly relates to a much rapid defensive enhancement on an organization.
So it seems to me like the purple team, if it's done correctly, has to have executive level buy-in that they can dictate to IT ops and security ops and the business what has to be changed real time in this process.
100%.
Right, literally right at that remediate phase.
100%.
So the report should not say, hey, you've got these vulnerabilities. The report should say, we addressed these inconsistencies in your configuration that would have stopped and certainly seen what the red team was doing. And by doing that, we now have mitigated the vulnerabilities, which, by the way, you probably still have.
Right.
And you should queue up. But now at least you have the ability to detect and respond to those issues and prevent them.
I was going to say, to that point, right, we got to remember it's prevent, detect, respond. Right? That's cyber defense. Right?
Yep.
If you
I will say kudos to Neil on this one. I was asked to present to our entire sales team at a company kickoff, and I came to him with, all right, I think this is what we should be talking about. And it was really these three things. And it was like, yeah, but you're missing the whole point here. It's not a circle, because if you do your job correct and you respond, that lessons learned piece right at the end after respond will tie directly back to better prevention. So you're not dealing with the same stupid problem time and time again. And this does tie into the tools, by the way, and this was my point in my presentation of if you do this the right way, you can, just by doing your day job, raise the security protection watermark of your organization so you're not dealing with the same stuff time and time again.
100%.
So
I'm gonna
cheers to you, Neil, because that you changed my my perspective on that one years ago.
I think on that note, I think I will go ahead and on that cheers, I'm gonna ask Sec IT guy to start the giveaway. We're gonna give away one case of Root beverage. In chat right now. Go ahead and ask Sec IT to kind of start that one. If you you'll see that one kind of come through chat as well. When you get the if you are selected as the winner, make sure you are Johnny on the spot with getting your name and your address over to Carmen Mod so that we can get you your case. We are preloading subs with additional entries for this. Just given given their loyalty to the community, we will go ahead and subs do get an extra set of entries for this one. But on that note, that is exactly right, Jeff. And that's when you look at that in the purple teaming model that we're talking about down here, that's why when you get here to the remediate section, as soon as that remediation is done, you are able to come right back over here to this part of the phase.
So you would run it again.
Exactly.
Did you see it now? Okay, that's interesting.
Exactly. And now you've got this little loop that you're doing here in testing, right?
Yep.
That allows you to fix on the spot and validate through repeated testing. That's
a totally different cycle than red teamers are ever used to.
100%. 100%.
But so a stupid question, because everything you talked about here, like, sorry, but there wasn't anything like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant, Neil, you're a rock star. Sorry.
Thanks, Jeff.
With the exception of this, because I mean, no, I'm serious. You get together and talk. Well,
right.
Duh, like totally makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's this piece that, like, I would bet that a red teamer could totally revolutionize their scope of work and make it, like, from a selfish salesperson's perspective, way more sellable.
Yeah.
Not only am I going to show you what your vulnerabilities are, I'm going to help your blue team SOC know and understand what attackers are doing, how they're doing it, and ensure that they have visibility to the right things. Don't you think that's a better sellable scope of work?
It is a better sellable scope of work, but here's what I go back to. Red teamers and their egos think that this is where their life exists.
Yeah.
They think that they have to exploit and that this is where their life exists. And so
so all of you people going into red teaming, change your way of thinking, stop the ego, and get rich, because you will be one of a kind and you will help all of these companies out in a way more palpable way.
Because here's what happens, right? At the end of this, here's what your report has, right? There was a vulnerability, sure. It was exploitable because you are going to exploit it, right? You're still going to do your exploit phase.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to remediate it. Right? Now you're going to be able to talk about how you remediated this faster than a normal pen testing cycle would.
Yeah.
And now, to your point before, in this process, in a normal pen test, that process that we talk about, and this is what Jeff was kind of alluding to, if in a normal pen test, I got to figure out where all my landscape is.
Where are you? You're giving me a headache.
I know, right? I know. In a normal pen test, depending, and I joke about the $300,000 vulnerability scan that I paid for one time. You could have like
you do not joke about it. You're like, funny.
I paid yeah, exactly. You could have an RDP vulnerability, right? That has no exploit code at all, right? A TLS vulnerability.
But it's a vulnerability
that has no exploit code.
And no executive in the world has a clue what the impact of that is.
Right.
Or the fact that there is really no impact.
Right. Insert whatever vulnerability you want to right here. Chances are there is no exploit for it. There are so few exploits. Listen to me.
So define that, because I think I know what you're talking about there, but I don't know if everyone does.
Absolutely.
So, like, what do you mean no exploit for that vulnerability?
Trying to think of the best way to draw this, right? So let's take remote code execution. Remote code execution, if I were to use my people here.
That's a great drawing, by the way. You've gotten so much better tonight.
I'm not on a napkin in a restaurant.
Those drawings, by the way, are the best.
Right.
I might still have a picture of that. I will send that to you if I do.
You should post it on Twitter.
I do have a Twitter account. I just don't ever use it.
In remote code execution, I send a piece of code to a target that says, do this. Typically a buffer overflow, something like that. We can get into that a little bit later. This target has no idea what to do with it, so it crashes. And that crash, when that crash happens, basically opens up my little dude, splits him in half, creates a little gap in his body right there. Okay? And then you can stick in that gap anything that you want, typically exploit code. Right?
Those two blue pictures kind of look like me pre-COVID and post-COVID.
That's fair. That's fair. And so people oftentimes confuse in a remote code execution, the vulnerability is actually, can you make it crash? Can you cause a crash? The exploitation happens when you can drop a payload to tell the target to do something you want it to do.
Yep.
You can write a vulnerability simply because you confused the target and made it crash.
But if you can't put a payload on there, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
All you did was make it crash.
All you did was make it crash. You got an opening where at some point in time, maybe in the future, you might get lucky or somebody else might get lucky and be able to do something with that opening. But as of right now, there's nothing that can be done with that opening. Does that track with you, Jeff?
Yeah, I see it exactly like, and this won't track with you, but it might track with other people. I see it no different than UEFA championships going on right now, and someone's got a wide open goal, and they've got the ball at their foot at the 6-yard line, and the goalie tripped over himself outside of the 6-yard box. It's wide open, and you still missed the goal.
And you still missed the goal. Yep, 100%. So when you look at vulnerabilities that come out of most pen test reports, most pen testers, and I've said this before, report on vulnerabilities because they're afraid of writing a pen test report that has 0 findings.
Yeah.
And so what you get is you get a pen test report that says, well, you got a TLS vulnerability, you got an RDP vulnerability, or you've got some other vulnerability, but no exploit may ever exist for that ever in the future.
So let me ask this question.
Okay, go ahead. I was going to say, but this gets to exactly what you're talking about before, which is what the board or the CISO or the CIO see is they see this
the word vulnerability,
right? They see this CVSS 10,
what
right?
Is that?
Vulnerability, common vulnerability scoring system.
Okay, and 10 is the highest level,
and 10 is the highest up there, and they say we've got CVSS 10 vulnerabilities. I want you to go fix them right now. And that may
everyone who knows what those are like, really?
Why are we wasting time on this? Why are we wasting time on this? And so this causes exactly what you're talking about, which is a reprioritization of the security team away from the problems that actually matter in fixing the security of the organization, because they've now got to go work with IT or manufacturing or somebody like that to fix these vulnerabilities that no exploit ever exists with.
So I've got 2 questions for you.
Go for it.
No exploit. Does that mean that no one has just figured out a way to be creative with that opening? But it could exist, and someone could figure it out. No one just has taken the time to do so. Is that all that means?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty fair. Because
all it is time, right?
It is time. It is time. But I mean, that's why when I've written threat reports before, the threat reports that I've written have been things like, hey, this is a big deal, but we don't have to run out and patch it right now because there is no exploit in the wild. Nobody's exploiting this. There's no proof of concept code, anything like that. And it's a way to couch that conversation to say, we should be on the lookout for this, but the sky's not falling, sort of thing.
So I've got 2 questions as a follow-up to that then.
Go for it.
I fear with all of the latest issues that we have seen in the news that there's going to be a proliferation of red team exercises that are board initiated. Are we susceptible to these things, right? And I feel that the red team exercises will not take into account exactly what you're talking about here with the purple team oversight. What can a security operations team do when they hear that a red team exercise is on the docket? What can they do in order to get more out of that? Because it's unfair to them.
Yeah.
And it's not helping them.
100%.
All it's doing is wasting their time with an organization or a security organization that's already taxed up to their eyeballs.
100%. I think the biggest thing that a SOC can do if they are aware that a pen test is happening is to get involved early. Encourage, implore the leadership team to have the incident response team work closely with the pen testing or red team that is involved so that you can try to do this process in some way, shape, or form. Like, just get involved early. Just try to get involved early.
So if they don't see a purple team, I'm guessing they could have access to the scope of work, like, ahead of time.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Well, it depends. I mean, I've seen CISOs play this game where they're like, oh, I want to test my incident response's ability to detect an attack. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about here. Right. And it would be way more effective if you actually follow this process end to end like this.
Totally agree. And I think, like, from my perspective, I think it's a very plausible request as a director of the SOC to go to a CISO who's just signed up for a red team exercise and say, can we at least have an internal project manager walk through what the red team is doing and ensure that we see when they're attacking so that we can learn from this session as well? Because right now, all you're getting is, are we good or are we bad? And you'll still get that with this, because that person who you name will be able to say, yeah, on the right side of the table, the red team did this activity and the left side of the table did not see it.
100%.
Okay. And the result was it wasn't configured to see it. And we had a discussion afterwards, and it was an intentional configuration to not see it 3 years ago because IT operations didn't want to spend the network bandwidth required to do so, or the cycles bandwidth on their VDI instance, or whatever it is, right? Some business decision to impact what the SOC could have visibility into. But I think that's a plausible request of the CISO by the Security Operations Center manager.
By the SOC manager, by the IR manager, by the IR analyst. I don't care where you are. Like, I think it is a completely valid request to step up and say, how do we get involved in this process that I've got up here on the screen so that you can get better results out of your red team engagement? 100%.
All right. So
Absolutely.
people who are listening to this stream right now, who know of a red team exercise going on, they need to write up a business case for their CISO, correct?
Whether you want to call it a business, I'm a huge fan of business cases, as you know.
Or an argument.
An argument, right?
An argument within an email.
Yeah. I think you should have that conversation.
I personally think in threes. I think in threes, and so I would probably say, for these 3 reasons, we need to have ensure that the visibility is configured correctly to know that we can detect the things that the red team is trying to do. Number 2, we need to assess the timeline of when they attacked and when we can see it, so that we get an understanding of how these vulnerabilities and issues and attacks propagate within our network, and when we start to have visibility into them. Yeah. Because the clock didn't start when we had visibility. The clock started when that red team guy pressed the button and the exploit started.
Yeah.
That's when the clock should have started, but our clock hasn't started quite yet, right? And why, right? And then lastly, what were the lessons learned to improve protection? And do we have control within the SOC to do that? Or do I need to get your approval to get the network team or the IT operations team or whoever to spend a little bit more on bandwidth or spend a little bit more on cycles on their workloads or CPU cycles, whatever. Like to some point, there's going to be a financial discussion to this, but those 3 points I think are critical in order to have the SOC and incident response team get anything out of this other than stop what you were doing, now fix these vulnerabilities.
I think that that's a very, very good way to sum it up, because I think that I think the crux of the issue is still very much that we're not having joint collaborations between the teams that are assigned to attack organizations and the teams who at the end of the day either defend organizations or have to remediate any of the vulnerabilities that come out of, said attack, right?
By the way, you don't have to remediate something that you stopped ahead of time.
Right. I mean, if we look at like the things that come out of, like if we wanted to kind of get back to your point on, in terms of threes, right? Started here with blue, right? I mean, they're business informed, right? The blue team has the best view of the business, hands down, day in and day out, right? And this is probably if anybody was looking for something to clip or something to write down or document, I think that's what's going to be summarized right here in this little chart that I'm going to type up right now, right? Right.
I think you need to post this entire drawing.
I could probably put this one in Discord as well. Yeah. Right. So the blue team is business informed, right? The blue team, they understand the architecture of an organization, right? They know
and configurations.
And configurations, 100%. They are the best ones to completely understand the architecture, the system stack, everything else. They are also the best ones to be able to talk about the detection capabilities inside of an organization. Mm-hmm. The red team, they are the best ones to talk about the threat. They know the threat. They should know all the threats that are out there, right? They have that red mindset, right? They have that attacker mindset. They know how to think like a hacker. What are the ways that hackers attack organizations, right? And because of that, and I go back and I've harped on this before, because of that hacker mindset, because they come from a pen testing background and pen testing is rooted in being able to simulate hackers, they have that hacker emulation capability, right? And so when you pull those together, right, it creates the best way to measure the defenses of the threat and the detection capabilities, right? So you're pulling the threats and you're pulling the detection capabilities together and being able to measure them simultaneously in an organization, right? You now get context. And I can't underscore how important context is in red team engagements and pen testing engagements that most pen testers never get.
So define that a little bit better.
Oh, fantastic. You hack a box. You get root on a box. You're so pumped that you got root on a box. You take it to the IT team. You take it to the web app team. Maybe it's a web app that you got root on. And they're like, that box has been wiped. There's nothing on it. It's using a default password for a Dell, remote access system. And it has no other information on it. You can't use that password anywhere else in the organization. It's not attached to the domain. You can't get any hashes off that box. It's literally a standalone computer that has
in other words,
zero value.
There's no island hopping.
There's no island hopping.
You can't jump from that one and elevate privileges. You can't jump from that box to another box.
It is literally, It literally has zero value in an organization. Most pen testers who are hearing me probably don't understand that there are actually boxes in an organization that it doesn't matter if you exploit, if they hold no value, if you can't use them for lateral movement, it doesn't do you any good to pop them. And so that context, you gain context in a purple teaming world that you don't have in most red team engagement.
Yeah. And the red team, could actually do themselves a disservice to go to the leadership and say, we popped this box. Oh yeah, we're all that.
Yeah.
And then the executives, a week later find out that that box was totally irrelevant and couldn't be exploited. Nothing else could happen. The red team actually just did themselves a disservice by not thinking this way.
And they embarrass themselves because they think they're hot stuff when in fact there's nothing.
Yeah.
There. And that leads me to what I think is probably the most important part of purple teaming. Business impact. Only place in the organization where you're going to be able to run a program and have one of the largest business impacts that exist out there.
Because this ties to risk, this ties to finance, this ties to your probability of getting attacked, exploited, and being in the news.
Absolutely.
Right there.
100%. 100%. So, Jeff, yes, we're going to take questions here pretty soon. I was going to see if, Jeff, you had any last minute questions before I opened it up to the audience for questions. I know we kind of covered a lot there. I'll leave this iPad over here.
I was curious if you believe part of that business impact is like the reality check for executives to say, yeah, we've got these vulnerabilities, but they're not exploitable, and we would not, derail current operations to solve this right now. It'll be on the radar screen at some point in the future, but until it is critical, truly critical and exploitable, then it's not going to hit our radar screen.
Yeah.
Do you see that being a purpose of the purple team?
I do. I think it gives you much, much more leverage in that conversation to say, this has no business impact. This does. And here's the proof in the pudding. 100%. Yeah. Jeff, let's solve the prediction. You've got a better understanding of purple teaming tonight? You feel like you could go out and have this conversation?
Actually.
Yeah? Did I teach you something?
I went from 101 to, I would say, 103. Probably I definitely have a lot more to learn on this. I am never going to be a coder, but I'm not going to say never. I've gone to Code Academy and I've worked on some things just because I like being that way.
Nice,
but
nice.
No, this is actually really, really good.
Good. Awesome. Well, let's take some questions. Let's take some questions from everybody. I'll ask Carmen to prioritize some of the purple teaming questions first so we can get those knocked out. Let's go ahead and take some questions. I think did we get a winner for the giveaway by chance? Gotcha. Mr. Hototo says, I was thinking the same. So why isn't the concept of purple teams being more implemented? Most organizations already struggle to have dedicated red teams, and so they rely heavily on outsourced pen testing engagements and outsourced red teams. And those companies, regrettably, fortunately, depending on what side of the argument you're on, rely on the transactional method of pen testing to prove their value to an organization. And so it's not in their best interest to do pen tests that way. It's in their best interest from a pricing perspective.
Repeat customer, repeat billing.
If I can, if I can make $100,000 off of you on this size of a scope and $200,000 off you on this size of a scope, and I can do it every year, that's easy money.
Right.
That's easy money.
This is where the business doesn't know that they shouldn't be asking for red teaming exercises.
Yeah.
When they go to a consulting firm and say, I want a red teaming exercise, they're doing themselves a disservice. Would you agree with that?
100%. 100%.
So they need to be better educated on what they should be asking for, as far as the deliverable is not a list of bad things that could happen to me. The deliverable is my team better trained and organized and better set up for success against known and unknown threats?
Absolutely. I did just get informed the Beard, congratulations to BeardSec for winning the case of Root. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Enjoy that. Let me know what you think of it. Waiting for the next question. I'm pushing it off screen. There it goes. All right, here we go. Yelstein says, how do you start implementing this purple program concept on an ongoing business operation where they are used to a traditional separate SOC pen test team? I think you foster that collaboration, right? I think if we go back to what I was talking about before, Jeff, and keep me honest on this one as well, right? I think this is the case, right? But if we go back to right here, zoom in, right? This part right here, where we force those people, right? We force those people to talk to each other. I think if you force that collaboration, that's how you begin to implement it as a program, where you put them in the same room, you force them to talk to each other. I think that's how you start that process.
I actually think, like, real world, I was actually surprised that you said that was the start. I would have thought that would have been phase 2. The first piece was to agree that when you do the test, we are all in the same room together, because I think that's where you get the most bang for the buck. I
guess I was looking at it a little bit more draconian, and when the red team comes through and says, hey, I want to do a pen test, you'd be like, good. I want you in the same room and talking to the IR team when you're doing it. Yeah. Agreed. 100%.
Do you think red teams are going to be able to, answer, oh, yeah, we'll do that? Or do you think they'll push back?
Oh, I think they'll push back. I think there'll always be some that push back. 100%. I think there will be a portion of this that is cultural that absolutely, causes a shift.
By the way to solve that is tell the sales rep that, fine, we're going elsewhere because that's critical to me. That is a non-deal right there.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed at how fast that gets solved.
Devnell Zen says, is purple teaming the new trend? Because traditionally most pen tests were done poorly, because this sounds like what red teams should be doing, already be doing. That's kind of what I said at the beginning, Devnell Zen, is that when those of us who recognized that this was just the right thing to do, we were doing this in the beginning anyway. Purple teaming, as with anything else, is a way to put a fancy salesy marketing buzz term on it. But this is definitely what you should be doing anyway at the beginning. And so I very much see that. And this is one of those trends where I'm happy to adopt and I'm happy to advocate for if it produces better quality pen testing in most organizations.
But I think part of this is also the CISOs have to get better educated on what they should be asking for as far as an intended outcome. Yeah. I think they have just gotten into a pattern of the intended outcome is to see if my organization is able to do their job well.
Yeah.
And that isn't the intended outcome of the CISO's purpose. The intended outcome is to foster an environment where your group is in the best possible place to stop more attacks, have better visibility, and control these threats quickly and on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I totally agree. Reduce risk.
Yeah.
Reduce that
risk. That should be what they're trying to do. And I think just because we've always done it the red team way doesn't mean that the purple team way isn't the right way to do it.
100%. Priority question for Black Knight says, so if the business needs to be better prepared at what they need to have tested, does that fall on the CISO? At the end of the day, yeah. At the end of the day, that absolutely falls on the CISO. 100%.
Because 99 times out of 100, it's the CISO that's signing that scope of work.
Remember, the CISO owns the risk decisions, owns the cyber risk mitigation in an organization.
Mm-hmm. And they own the responsibility to communicate that to the board.
100%. While a CISO reports to some other C-level, they're accountable to the board.
Mm-hmm. But don't you think that a CISO, if they just adopted this, could show why it's the better way to the board? And if they just explained it, the board would be in a way better spot to accept it.
If the CISO could get over the board asking, have we done a pen test? The CISO needs to get in the mindset of saying, yes, we do ongoing pen testing. The answer is yes. And that ongoing pen testing just manifests itself in the form of purple teaming.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Geller says, There is a lot of talk about blue, red, purple, those other colors. I've heard Neil call red teaming the big sexy right now, but if I were seeking the biggest challenge for myself, what should I be looking at? Blue team, hands down. Blue team, hands down. I oftentimes equate the blue team organizations, incident responders, as they are the front lines of the cyber defense in any company. They are fighting the bad guy day in and day out, hands down. Josh again says, is there any other purple team platforms that you would recommend besides Attack IQ? There are I guess I shouldn't say quite a few. I know of Attack IQ, Simulate, Safe Breach. I know those are the three major players. I have tested all three of them, in a proof of concept. I personally think Attack IQ is much, much better than those three. There is another smaller player called Scythe. I've not looked at their product. I have no opinion on them whatsoever. I know that there is a open source-ish type product out there called Prelude. I have notionally looked at theirs, and I think it's in its infancy. And, if you want something to play with, you can go play with Prelude. But this is why I'm a huge fan of Attack IQ, is because of all the ones that I've evaluated, I think Attack IQ is the best. Stuns and Roses says, does this mean purple team operations could make red team skilled people have less of a niche role in the cybersecurity field? Absolutely. And I would go to that speaks to the ego of why most red teamers don't necessarily openly adopt purple teaming, is because they want to keep with their little niche clique group of people, and try to keep it to themselves. Absolutely.
Yeah, by the way, this is why understanding tactics, techniques, and procedures is so critical, because you see it right here. The red teamer doesn't want to change their tactics and evolve because it's super hard to do that.
Yeah. So
knowing those tactics, techniques, and procedures sets you up in a great way to stop more bad stuff.
100%. Josh again with follow-up says, is there any purple team certifications, article, blogs that you'd recommend or frameworks to know? MITRE from a framework, like hands down, know all things MITRE.
Totally industry adopted. Everyone 100%. Talks about it.
Like when you think purple, whoa, go back to that question. Frameworks, definitely go to MITRE. Certs, there's no purple teaming certs. If you hit ! Attack IQ, there is Academy. Everything that I just talked to Jeff about tonight, I took Attack IQ's introduction to purple teaming class over the last couple weeks. Everything that I just talked to Jeff about tonight is actually taught also in their introduction to purple teaming on their Academy. So if you go hit ! Attack IQ, follow that link over to Academy, sign up for Academy. They've got more purple teaming courses that you can go take over there completely for free. You don't have to pay anything for those courses whatsoever. I think those are the two questions that you asked. Dr. Geller says, if purple team becomes a program, doing some red work as a program, does that mean that pen testing will be something that companies will look for more? Is purple teaming becoming more prevalent in the industry? I think the answer to becoming more prevalent is it needs to be becoming more prevalent. I think when it becomes a program, we stop pen testing. Like if anybody's ever done a pen test report or read a pen test report and they see pen testing, they see that kind of default statement of this was a point in time engagement. I think by converting it to a program, you can get closer to ongoing pen testing, ongoing red teaming, and then you become more effective at your testing strategy because it becomes a program instead of just doing it as a one-off transaction. Now I'm done with that one.
You just yelled at them, so they're a little skittish.
I'm gonna get smacked for that one later on.
Yeah, you probably. I am glad I'm in Chicago.
That's right. See, now she's waiting to make sure I'm done before she pushes the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, you like that? How about this?
Oh, I'm so getting it later. All right. Well, I guess that's a sign that we're done pushing questions. Maybe she may have. Yes, I read this one. I've read this one. Did VMix just?
By the way, I am also not seeing purple teaming being more prevalent in the industry. So I still see red team.
Yeah.
I still see red team as being the sole and exclusive method.
Yeah. How does GRC fit into purple teaming? Business context, risk context. I think GRC provides the context piece that we talk about. I think it's your work with the enterprise risk management team. I think it's your work with cyber insurance. I think it's your work with the disaster recovery and business continuity folks that provides all of that context that's needed for the purple teaming to be, if we go back to Neil's like good, better, best, good is minimal context. Better is maybe you've got an asset inventory to provide you some context. Best is a fully fleshed out, excellent GRC program to provide you with that maximum amount of business context. That's how I see GRC playing into it. Jeff, I don't know if you got an opinion on that as well.
No, I was actually going to turn it into a little bit of a question around cyber insurance again, right? Do you see cyber insurance helping in this process of prioritizing purple teaming? Because I would think from a cyber risk perspective, they would be very interested in knowing that the incident response team worked in conjunction with the red team in order to see issues, solve issues, and gain better visibility and training into how to solve those.
I'm going to go with the cynical answer on that and say no, because I still don't think that cyber insurance underwriters or organizations as a whole are smart enough in the stuff that goes on in the cybersecurity industry to be able to understand what that means for risk reduction.
Yeah. They're super good at actuarial stuff, not very good at how that dovetails with security.
100% agree. Yeah. Sean Boy says, could have executives that are more cybersecurity savvy when it comes to purple, blue, and red teaming help the security testing be more effective? No. I think
I don't think they understand blue, purple, red. All they understand is, are we at risk for that attack that I just saw in the news?
When you think about some of these cybersecurity organizations where you have a cyber executive, and again, when I was just at Mondelez, the CISO that we had there, Paulo Velotti, amazing. Go find him on LinkedIn, connect with him, tell him I sent you over to go find him. Incredibly brilliant from a technology perspective. He was the CISO and the CTO over at Fiat Chrysler over in Detroit for well over 10 years. He's brilliant when it comes to technology. He's too busy with the business to be that far in depth. He's cybersecurity savvy and technology savvy enough to call you an idiot if you screw something up, but he can't be in those decisions every single time because he's busy dealing with the business. He's busy dealing with the board. He's busy dealing with the rest of the organization to try to reduce risk. And so it helps, but I don't think it makes testing more effective. Can medium and small companies even afford to fund a purple team operation if they can't even get their heads around the 3 simple security practices to implement? SMBs and mid-caps, and Jeff and I share a similar passion for this, right? SMB and mid-caps will always struggle to achieve the same level of security at all fronts that larger organizations do. And unfortunately, companies, large and small on the cybersecurity vendor side, they're only focused on the big companies because they only want $1 million deals. I think that there are companies, there are vendors and opportunities that are out there to try to make this more effective. That's a fair question, and I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis, but I think it's a diamond in the rough to find those.
Don't you think, though, that a small to medium-sized company that, let's just say they've got 2, maybe 3 analysts in their SOC, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna draw a line in the sand saying under that, you're probably right. It's going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah.
But if you could take one of those people, maybe the middle of the line, not the best analyst, not the lowest level analyst, but somewhere in the middle, if you just ask that person to be the mitigator between the red team and the blue team, with the understanding that you can stop the exercise at any time and say, time out. What are you seeing? What are you doing? What is the timeline that just happened? If you just get that, process of talk before the attack and sit in the same room during the attack and have that middle of the road analyst who understands well enough what's going on to have that visibility, I think that would open the door for a small to medium sized company to deal with the lack of funding for a specialized purple team exercise.
I think that that's completely fair. I think what, when you look at a question like this, about small to medium businesses and things like that, I think the problem becomes they're probably also doing IT work, and they're also probably overwhelmed in the cybersecurity incident response work that they're doing, that it's still a struggle for them to break away to even do something as simple as that. And so I think you have to have a culture in that organization to say, we're going to prioritize some of these concepts like purple teaming because we're going to do better from the start versus doing it the same old that everybody else has been doing it.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to have a specialized purple teaming exercise if you can't really afford it, but adopting a couple of the principles would really help.
100%. I am Vicious says, how can we as red teams help companies understand the significance of purple teaming and persuade them to adopt this? I love this question. Change your mindset when you write your scopes of work and your engagements with those companies so that you force yourselves into the conversation with the incident response team. One of the biggest ways that I did this was when I was building the pen testing team for an MSP out of Michigan. I told them, I made a business decision that as part of our scope of work was that we would spend X number of hours conducting our engagement in the same room as the incident response team, right? And when you make that standard practice in your scopes of work and in your rules of engagement, guess what? You have just forced yourself into the room, and now it's up to you and the IR team to prove the significance of purple teaming. Like, it's not the company's responsibility anymore. It's yours.
And by the way, as a red team company, you're going to get a lot more mind share from that executive leadership team.
Yeah.
For additional, maybe not necessarily red team exercises, but a lot more consulting services down the road as a result of actually helping them.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly. Dr. Geller again, if these auditing companies are currently selling a red team reoccurring line item, why not sell a purple team line item? Also, if you think this is a good idea, please bring me in at the ground floor. I do think I think if you've got a company that's selling a reoccurring line item, again, I think it's just a matter of changing your scope when you write that line item that says that
upsell it to purple.
Yeah, upsell it to purple. Just be like, hey, I'm gonna upsell you when it doesn't cost you anything operationally to say I'm gonna spend 8 hours, 16 hours of my engagement sitting in the SOC with the IR team to do your engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just do it. Net Fraser says, for all the training out there, is there any platform that actually goes over what a real world business situation like this? This is why I hawk the academy from Attack IQ, because I think that that's the best way to get a lot of this for free, is to go to Academy and take their purple team training. No other, when you talk about other platforms out there like SafeBreach or Simulate or any of these other ones that are out there, Attack IQ is the only one with a free. And you know how I am about free training. I love the free training. Attack IQ Academy is the only one with free training where you can get close to that type of training. So hit that exclamation point attack IQ, go over to Academy, sign up and take Academy classes, because that's the best place to get this. Jeff, are you good on time or do you need to run?
I probably have another 5-10 minutes.
Okay, let's push it to 10:15 if you're good, and we'll call it good at 10:15. So let's see if we can crush through a couple questions the next 10 minutes. Will INE EJPT become DoD 85 certified soon so that we will not be wasting money on the other certs just to get DoD certified? Thanks, Neil and Jeff. I sure hope so.
Thanks for including me in that. Thanks, Neil and Jeff. I have zero input on that.
Would you rather pay $600,000 to a cybersecurity company to protect your assets, $50,000 to a pen tester to do their best at finding vulnerabilities, or $500,000 to ransomware? $600,000 to a cybersecurity company to protect your assets any day of the week.
Yeah. Why are we trusting ransomware organizations to only do one bad thing and go away?
Yeah. Like investment in something to protect. Again, protect, detect, respond, right? If I pay $600 to protect and do the strategy the right way, you'll get the most out of it. Hands down. I'll always take that. There we go. How do you deal with salary gaps from jumping from sysadmin to cyber?
You're in so much trouble later, dude.
You know what? If I'm going to get in trouble, I'm just going to swing for the fences. If you don't see,
I am on Carmen's side on this, by the way.
Listen. If I don't show up to Friday morning's tea with a hacker stream,
you'll
know
exactly
why.
You'll know
exactly what happened. How do you deal with salary gaps from jumping from sysadmin to cyber without any dedicated cyber experience? That's a financial decision that you're going to have to make internally. There is a ceiling, right? And we talked about golden handcuffs. I think that was it was either Monday night or last Saturday or last Friday morning. We talked about golden handcuffs. That's an internal financial decision for yourself. If you start comparing red team exploits to APT breaches and cost, would that help C-levels see the benefit? No.
No, it's like after their eyes came back from rolling back in their heads and then waking up, they would be like, "Were you just talking to me?" And,
yeah.
Sorry, what did you say?
No.
They totally different playing field than what they're normally used to talking.
100%. Would pen test experience simply be CRTO if you work on the blue side fluently? Not sure what you're referring to on the CRTO acronym. Share that acronym with me and I'll answer that question. Cyber insecurity, do you think that the field of cybersecurity is overhyped due to many colleges doing degrees and boot camps? Is the field oversaturated for people getting into it? No. The data proves that we have way more job openings than people in it.
We need people. SpammerBach is hiring, let alone companies. Like every MSSP I have heard of needs more people now.
Yeah, 100%. Since you have companies that farm out their SOC, do you think there's a market to have a full people consultancy? Margins on people consultancy is hard. I know of one MSSP that was trying to play the people game that is actually now trying to divest their people business because the margins on people suck.
Yeah, it's because unless you are absolutely fully contracted 24/7 by your people, you are not getting the bang for the buck, and you are having to way overcharge on an hourly rate in order to compensate for that.
100%. What's the fastest way to be a SOC leader? Go work your way up via IR. Start as a SOC analyst, get in as many incidents as you can. I would go after every incident. Mm-hmm. Look for ways.
Garbage jobs.
#garbage jobs. Go lead every terrible incident that you've got out there and, show that you can crush leading an incident. That's the fastest way to be a SOC leader. If you can lead an incident effectively, you're going to make a kick-ass SOC leader. How do I get out of the MSP life and into a SOC? I I think if you're on an MSP, you should be able to get into the security side of your MSP and just start doing incident response work. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not sure what MSP you're working with that doesn't have a SOC already, but I would just again, get involved in incidents. Go over there and start working incidents with them.
And if you're not at an MSP that has a SOC, go to a new MSP that does, and start hanging out with the SOC people.
Yeah. Residual. Is there researchers on what techniques, goods that hackers are selling on deep dark webs? Yeah, but they mostly work for threat intelligence companies like Anomaly, Recorded Future, Carbon Black, things like that. So yeah, absolutely. Go look for a threat researcher for either a threat intelligence company, an EDR company, Proofpoint, companies like that, 100%. Is it true that trying to get into cloud is easier and worth than cybersecurity is overwhelming? I think getting into cloud is a game changer right now. And whether you do that on the cybersecurity side or whether you do that on the cloud engineer architect side, I think you could almost write your own paycheck in cloud right now.
Yeah. Cloud security. Everyone is talking about it.
100%.
Because no one figured that out when they started pushing to the cloud. They're like, oh, yeah, we'll just do the same security program that we did before.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't work? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
And security was the last to know.
100%.
So now they're playing catch up.
100%. Is it normal for red team members to perform under ego? Yeah, that's why I call it out, right? Most red team members don't want to talk about their ego, but they get real snippy when they go into an organization to do a test and they can't find anything. They get real snippy when you want them to partner with incident response because they're like, I don't want to be detected. I don't want incident response to know because then they'll be looking for me and then I won't be successful at rooting a box. I think, every pen tester, every red teamer at some point in time has been plagued by ego that has hampered their ability to be objective in doing a penetration test.
Well, and I know every red team wants to come up with a list of vulnerabilities and issues, but as a business leader, wouldn't it be good to say, hey, this red team does know what they're doing and they found that we're actually in pretty good stead. So it seems to me like that's where executives would go as opposed to, well, the only reason you didn't find anything is because you suck. I don't think they would go that direction.
It's hard, right? Because that's the imposter syndrome that red teamers faces is if I don't find anything, somebody's going to go, oh, you suck.
Right.
Heaven forbid that you do a pen test and the organization is actually secure.
It's like sky is falling. Right.
Talk about giving an aneurysm to a red teamer.
There is nothing to write in my report.
How are you?
Actually, if your report was small enough, executives might actually read it.
Okay, that's a very, very good point. Residual says, how are you supposed to stay ahead of the curve with attacks? With ever-changing methodology and non-existent security collaboration, aren't teams going to stagnate? You have to build into your teams, methodologies for them to stay connected, right? If you put your SOC in a room and you don't allow them to talk to the outside, you don't participate in the ISACs, you don't talk to peers in the industry, you tell your SOC that they can't share threat data or attack data with other peers in their industry.
I'm gonna harp on that one right there.
Go for it.
Like this industry 20 years ago was all about making each other better.
Yeah.
And we started getting into this, well, I'm going to hold my little piece to myself because I found it, it's mine, and I don't want to share it. We got to stop doing that. We have got to start sharing more and more of our threat intelligence among our peers. That's the way we can solve this.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I think
it should only be a 0 day to one person.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything else should be, we've seen this before, and they shared it immediately.
And I'll tell you, having built that, the person to blame is legal.
Oh, 100%.
It's legal.
Yeah. So how do you solve that though? Because I know I'm. Screw it, I'm going over my time here.
I was going to say, you're over time. That's it for you. You're done.
No, but I still have this question because how do you solve that? Because legal's still going to weigh in to say, we cannot leave ourselves vulnerable.
legal's going to weigh in that says, I don't want you talking about us getting attacked because then somebody may leak that we got hacked and that could look bad for us on a reputation. That's why legal doesn't want you to talk about it, is because legal doesn't want to have to deal with the ramifications that somebody may interpret you sharing threat data as an interpretation that you got hacked.
Yep.
So
see, it all ties back to our lawyer conversation, doesn't it?
Absolutely, 100%.
Everything circles back to that.
Jeff, that's it for tonight, buddy.
Hey, did I do all right?
You did fantastic. I think you did great. I think you did amazing. I thought it was awesome. Do you got any closing remarks for the community?
If I could get better with purple teaming, you can get better with purple teaming. Because everyone on here is way more technically savvy than I am.
Aw.
100%.
Aw.
No, absolutely 100%.
How was my teaching?
It was actually really, really good. I love the whiteboard side of it, because that like totally lays out what the framework should look like for how purple teaming should act.
Yeah. I'm glad I
still think there's room for a follow-up conversation around.
For up-to-the-minute cybersecurity news, make sure you follow and subscribe to the Cyber and Security channel on Twitch and YouTube. Also, make sure you turn on those notifications so that you know when we go live.